Well, hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video, I am going to show you how to begin building your project. To start us off though, I figured it'd be fun to kind of show you what the end result of your project is going to look like. This is mine, it's called Lonely Robot. You will have a main menu with instructions down below that tell your players how they're supposed to play the game, and a button that they can press in the middle. When they click play, it'll open up their game. Now, I have sound effects and music playing here, but you can't... Oh, let's get over this guy. I don't want to die. But you can't hear them because I've muted my computer so that we don't get annoyed by all the sound effects. But anyway, so you have a main character here. He's animated. He has a nice idle animation. He's kind of bobbing up and down. He has a run animation. He has a jump animation. I can pick up these batteries. These are collectibles, and when I collect a collectible, it updates in my HUD up here. It tells me how many collectibles I've picked up. These enemies can hurt me, and I can also jump on them to squish them. So for example, oh, there's me getting hurt, and that's a game over. Let's see. So I can run and pick up these batteries. Now notice that enemy, he dropped off of the platform, whereas the others, they will move back and forth. I can show you how to set up both kind of enemy when we get to that point later on in the turn. There's also a run button so that you can jump farther. So that is a functionality that's set up there. And I just keep getting hurt by these guys. Anyway, so that's the game we're going to make. So let's go ahead and start setting up our project. Before we even really open up Godot though, I want to make sure that we have all the assets that we need. So I have my Lonely Robot assets here. Now your game is obviously going to be different than mine. It's going to have different assets, different things that you're adding in. But I have a font file that I really like. I have some sounds. Oh, where'd my sounds go? I'll have to go find those and put them back in the folder. And then I have sprites. So all the artwork that I need for my game. Sounds we won't need for a while. And font we won't need for a little while either. So really the sprites is what you're focused on. And for sprites, we're really talking about the environmental sprite and the player sprite. Those are the two most important pieces of art that you need to really begin building this project. Okay, now I have a lot of projects on my Godot platform here. I'm going to create a new one. Now, some of you have asked about how to put your project on a flash drive. So here's a very quick way to do it. Let's say you have a flash drive installed. I'm going to go ahead and plug one into my computer so you can see what happens when I do that. 1 second. There we go. So I've plugged in my flash drive and it opens automatically. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes if you plug in a flash drive, you'll get a message down here that says, what should you do with a flash drive? And you can open it up from there. In here, I already have a folder called Godot, and I have some projects in there, along with Godot's, the actual Godot application. So what you can do is, on your flash drive, you can put this Godot v3.5 stable, and Godot v3.5 stable, Win64 console, whatever. You can put these two files into your flash drive. And as long as they're there, you can run Godot from your flash drive, right? And you can put all your projects in here as well. So for example, I have a platformer project. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Come on. I don't know why it's taking so long to delete. Delete. Yes. Oh, it's already deleted. Okay, well then take it off my list. Anyway, so what you can do is whenever you're building a new project in Godot, you can actually just add it to this directory right away. Mine is the G drive, right? So that's something you want to pay attention to. What is the number or the name of your drive? Mine is the G drive. So if I click New Project, notice that it's trying to put it into the C drive, and then it's going to go to my Documents folder. When I click Browse here, I can change the drive to the... Oh, because I opened it after. You probably have to have the flash drive plugged in before you open Godot. Browse. There we go. Notice I have a G drive, so I can put it to the G drive, and it pulls up my flash drive. And I can go to my Godot folder and put it into here. I'll say select, And then I'm going to give it a name. Let's say final project. Yours is going to be like your original game or whatever. I'm actually going to call it original game. And then create folder. So now I have a Godot original game folder in my flash drive, on my flash drive. And you can even see right here, it's already created the folder for me, right? And then when one other thing. For this project, with the way we're going to publish it, we want to use the OpenGL ES 2.0. Okay, make sure you select that. It's going to limit some features, but the features that it's going to limit are features we don't need for this project anyway. So it's totally fine to run it in OpenGL ES2. So make sure you select OpenGL ES2. If you don't, you won't be able to publish it to the HTML project at the end, and I won't be able to put it on a website, which is what I really want to do when we're done with these projects. So I'm going to click Create and Edit. Alrighty. Now we have a brand new project open in Godot. Fantastic. Now, before we start actually building this project, we are going to need to create some folders. I want to organize this project so that when we start putting assets in here and moving assets around, we have folders for those assets to go into, and everything is set up properly. Okay. So that's all we're going to focus on today is setup. Down here in my file system menu, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. In my file system menu, I have my res folder. Everything's going to go inside this folder, and we're going to need a couple of different folders. So I'm going to right click here and I'm going to click new folder. The first thing we're going to want is a scenes folder. This folder is going to hold all of our main scenes for the game. It's going to hold our main menu screen. It's going to hold our level 1, our level 2, our game over screen, our you win screen. All of those, they're going to be held in here. Another folder we want is something called objects. The objects folder is going to hold things that are basically objects in our game. Stuff like our player character, our enemies, collectibles, things like that. All right, let's see. Another folder we're going to need is scripts, so that we can add our scripts into this folder and they're all organized and we know where to find them. We will probably need a folder for art. And let's create a folder for sounds. Let's see, what else will we need? Scene, scripts, sounds, art, objects. I think that's probably it. Anything else that we need as we're building, we can just kind of add as we go. But I think that's okay for now. I think we'll be fine with those options. Okay. So the only other thing I wanted to do in this video is I want to start bringing in our art assets and setting them up properly so that we can use them without having to do a bunch of editing and whatnot. So let's take a look at our artwork. So I got to go back to my desktop and I have to go to Lonely Robot Assets. Okay. So if we look at sprites, I can see that I have a bunch of different pieces of artwork, right? I have my player, I have my pickup, my midground, my level 1 foreground enemy. This enemy is going to be different, actually. I'm going to bring in my slime enemy into this project. My start, my end. Okay. Like I said, the only thing we really need right now is our environment and our player. Let's bring in our environment. So to bring something into Godot in this way, all I have to do... Sorry, I had to close the door. All I have to do is drag this piece of art and bring it over here and kind of just drop it on top of the art folder. Now, sometimes it does what it just did. Notice how it just put it down here below everything. It didn't actually put it in my folder. Well, that's because it wasn't, I don't know. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. But all I have to do is drag it up and drop it onto that folder, and now it's inside my art folder. and I can collapse it and get rid of it. This is going to be really helpful because we're going to have a lot of things in this game. So it's nice to organize this from the beginning. Now, if I were to go into 2D and try to drag this out and put it there, notice that it's really gross and fuzzy. It doesn't look great, right? Nothing. What is going on here? Well, the problem is we need to change our import settings for this. We built this using a 32 by 32 pixel frame rate or aspect ratio, which means there's a lot of filtering and all kinds of stuff going on to try to make this look better, but it's really kind of screwing it up. So what we need to do is, with this piece of art selected, we need to go to import and we need to change some of these settings. Okay. So first of all, I want to disable the filter. So you go to filter and uncheck the on. If I click re-import, notice that everything is nice and crisp now. I can actually see my pixels. Everything looks good. That's probably all we have to do. But there's some other things in here you can change. For example, if your compression mode is set to anything other than lossless, you probably want to change it to lossless. And honestly, we could probably go uncompressed for this project because we don't really have a lot of assets, but it doesn't really matter. The difference between lossless and uncompressed isn't going to be that big of a deal. So the real important thing is turning off that filter. Okay. So let's see. I've done that for that piece of art. Let's go ahead and do that for my main player. And again, I'll try to drop them right onto the art. And it did. It worked that time. Yay. So notice that my player is really gross and fuzzy as well. I'm going to go in and turn off his filter and re-import. Now he looks great. All right, what else am I going to use in this project? Well, I'm definitely going to use the pickup, so I'll drop that in there. And I'll make sure I turn off that filter as well. And I think for now that's okay. We can probably we're going to use these other art assets later. And if you want, you can import all of your art assets now. I'm probably not going to, just because, I want to save time on the video. Like I said, the three most important things for now, at least for the next couple of weeks, is your level 1 environment art, your player, and your pickup, whatever collectible it's going to be. Actually, I think collectibles are going to come in later. Yeah, collectibles will be the very end, so you actually don't need this yet. But that's okay. If you have it, throw it in there. Okay, now let's talk about our scenes and how we're going to actually start building this thing. We're not going to really do any work on building it yet today, but I want to talk about the strategy here. So notice that I dragged out this level 1 piece of artwork and it created a new sprite. It recognized, hey, this is a sprite. So let's create a sprite node and we'll add that to it. That's great, but that's not what I really wanted. And when I dragged out the player, it made him a child of that level 1 node and all that. So I'm going to delete both of these because we don't actually want them to be imported that way. And delete that as well. What we're going to do when we start building this project is we are going to create what's called an object, right? We're going to use nodes to create objects. The first object we're going to create is our level 1 object, which is going to be an object, but it's also a scene. We're actually going to treat it like a scene. And so it's going to go in our scenes folder. After that, we're going to create a main player object, which is going to be in its own scene here, its own tab roughly, but it's going to exist by itself, and we'll be able to bring it into other scenes and it'll still behave properly. So just to make sure that we can save all of this work that we've done and keep all the changes that we've made, let's go ahead and create a node. In this scene, we'll call it level 1. So I'm going to create just say other node, and I'm just going to choose node and create. This is going to create an empty node in here, and we're going to call this level 1. And let's save all scenes. Save this scene. Yep, sorry. So we want to save this scene. Now it's going to ask us, where is this going to go? We're going to put this in our scenes folder, level 1. So now it's called level 1. It's inside our scenes folder. And in here, we can start putting together our first level, right? So at this point, we're at a good place. We've set up our project. Oh, wait, there's one more thing I forgot to do. Let's do this now before we start adding art, because this is going to be difficult if we don't do this now. So I'm going to go into project settings. The screen that we use to play this game has to be set up properly. Now, for me, I'm setting up my screen to be 512 by 288. So if I go to Window, notice that I have width and height. My width is going to be 512 and the height is 288. Now, if you're wondering why those specifically, I will show you. Let me pull out my calculator here. And I will pull it over here. Okay, so remember that our art assets are 32 by 32. So 32, that is the base that we're going to use the art asset. So if I say I want my screen to be 512 pixels wide, if we divide that by 32, that gives us 16 blocks across our screen. Exactly 16 blocks across our screen, which is going to make it look really nice. If we do 288 divided by 32, that gives us 9. Now, some of you may have noticed about those numbers. That's 16 by 9. That is the 16 by 9 aspect ratio that most TVs use. So if I were to play my game, there's nothing to play. But if I were to play my scene, let's select, well, yeah, actually, let's not do that yet. I'm going to play it from this scene here. Notice that the screen is really kind of small, but I can full screen it and it's going to look just as good. You'll see what this looks like whenever we actually have art there. But 16 by 9 is the aspect ratio that we're shooting for this project. So again, go to project settings and set it up 15 or 512 by 288. If you want more blocks on your screen, make sure you maintain that 16 by 9 aspect ratio. If you're going for a more old school, then you can do 4 by 3. But 16 by 9 is a pretty good standard aspect ratio to use. Anyway, so that's that. We can resize it. That's fine. We don't want to check full screen. The reason why is because if it's full screen, then that will make it so that we can't close the game unless we go into our task manager, because we're not going to program in a way to close the game just yet. So it's going to take it's going to be kind of a pain if we make it full screen. Let's see. And it looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. All right, so now everything's good. I'm going to save all scenes, and I will see you guys in the next video where we start actually building our first level. All right, bye.